I don't know if you've ever seen these maps of like private jets leaving something like the Super Bowl.
Oh yeah.
It's crazy. An insane amount, and you're like, why can these people not carpool together? I don't understand.
Greetings, Earthlings, and welcome back to Earthlings 2.0, the show where we imagine how we can be better versions of ourselves and build a collective future we actually want to live in. Today's show is very special to me because I've spent the bulk of my adult life researching and contemplating and weighing the pros and cons for countless products in relation to their quality and price points and sustainability factors. And of course, I am not always successful, and there are always trade-offs. Generally speaking, such a pursuit can be an endless research project. And even when you've made a decision, sometimes you're not even fully confident that you've made the right one. But sometimes you just have to make a decision. Analysis paralysis. It's the worst, which is why I rely on the experience of dedicated writers and product reviewers such as today's guest. She writes about gear and other consumer products for Wired magazine and has a growing list of buyer's guides focused on making more sustainable choices. But before we beam up our guest onto our metaphorical spaceship, I'm your host, Lisa Ann Pinkerton. I'm the CEO of the award-winning PR firm Technica Communications and founder of Women in Clean Tech and Sustainability. Before building those organizations, I was an award-winning environmental science reporter for NPR and PBS. And if you're new to our show, welcome to Earthlings 2.0. We hope that you enjoy your time on our ship. Please feel free to have a look around. And there's some other episodes on sustainability if you're interested in checking them out. We did one on electric yachts powered by the sun, the problem of food loss in our agricultural system, Earth Day's aim to end plastic pollution, and there was one about how forever chemicals like PFAS can actually be destroyed. They are not forever. And thank you to all of you returning listeners as well. We deeply appreciate you joining every week. Thank you. In fact, if you've listened to at least 3 episodes, you can consider yourself a loyal listener. And we would love it if you would take a moment to go to this listener survey in our show notes. That's going to help us better understand you as our audience and help us ensure that we bring you content that matches what you're interested in. And if you like what you hear on the show, we invite you to share the show with a friend of yours. Helping us get the word out about the show is the ideal way to give back, if you're feeling so inclined. Now, by and large, as consumers, I think it's safe to say that we do our best to make good choices about the products we buy, but it can be hard, especially when so much of our shopping is relegated to online activities. And I feel like this has gotten worse since the pandemic, which totally makes sense because none of us were going out shopping. So those stores had to come up with another way to sell product to us. But now it seems like you can go to a store and not nearly as much is in stock as it used to be. So you can't physically hold some of these items and evaluate them up close like maybe you're accustomed to. And frankly, sometimes I could feel like I'm making a better choice because I'm right there physically with the product. I don't know. Maybe that's just a psychological thing. But anyway, even if you're in the store, how do you really know that the product that's in the store is the best product that the store thinks should be available for that category, or is it just the product that gives them the highest margin on the sale? I'm looking at you, Bed Bath & Beyond, and look how well that turned out for you. Even if you are in the store evaluating products and there are products available, rarely are sustainably designed or produced products sitting on those shelves, often because those brands don't have the same clout or buying power as the larger brands to demand this shelf space. There's this whole economy of shelf space that goes on. I don't know if you're aware, in the grocery stores, especially, like where the brands are on the shelf, like they're paying to be there, especially at eye level. It's crazy what's going on behind the scenes there. Anyway, so we're in this information age. We have the internet. We're now buying more of our products online. So you'd think, oh, it's the information age. There's all this information out there. I should be able to find the best information for this product. Yes, sometimes, but it can be really hard to find that trustworthy information, which is why when you do find somebody who takes the time and uses the brain cycles to parse through the crap and highlight the best of the best, you tend to go back to them again and again. Medea Giordano is one of those writers. She is currently a gear writer for Wired magazine, and she covers a little bit of everything from health and beauty to clothing and pet tech. Frequently, she writes reviews on consumer products with sustainability attributes, which is what prompted us to invite her to the show. Prior to Wired, she was an assistant editor at Wirecutter and an assistant in the newsroom at the New York Times. We caught up with her from her remote work environment in New York City, and we talked to her for nearly an hour on a wide variety of products and topics. So if you want to get the full download from Medea on everything from recycled clothing to home delivery meal kits, razors, nylons, and what the industry thinks about being more sustainable, especially when it comes to packaging, head on over to Patreon. The link is in the show notes, and become a member. We've put the full interview up there. And we kicked off our conversation by lamenting about all the times that we have been seduced by social media ad campaigns that ended up not being nearly all they claimed to be.
People deserve to have real advice from someone who is in no way affiliated with the brand that they are reviewing. I do watch a lot of influencer videos, but you can only trust so many of them. There's a lot of great stuff out there. There's also a lot of crap, and there's also a lot of bad advice. And we don't all have endless wallets to risk it. So that is why I like to write about products.
Thank you, Medea. I love that you said that because I have fallen prey to several Instagram ad promotions that ended up being total crap. And I was like, why did I pay for this? Why did I get suckered in? I was out running yesterday and it dawned on me. I was like, are Instagram ads like as seen on TV commercials that we used to have growing up?
Yes, they are. And the TikTok shop, they definitely are. But they have better commercials instead of the kind of cheesy ones from As Seen on TV.
Yeah, exactly. As seen on TV, we kind of knew that it was like maybe not going to be great, but sometimes we still ordered it anyway. Um, yeah, so now I'm like, I'm twice bit, twice shy at this point. Which is why I'm really excited to talk to you specifically around some of the writing that you've done related to sustainability products, because I think that adds an additional layer of confusion um, or miscommunication, perhaps, between the brands and what the people think they're getting. So I'm curious to know how you started your path here, because when I was looking at your bio, it says that you turned your shopping problem into a career as a product writer. Like, how did that come about?
Well, I've always wanted to be a journalist since I was very young. I was pursuing covering more pop culture and lifestyle, which I still very much love doing and talking about. But I was introduced to commerce journalism early on. I was in my first job. I was an assistant in the newsroom of the New York Times when they bought the recommendation website Wirecutter. Eventually, I ended up with a job at Wirecutter, and I realized, as somebody who does love to buy things and loves to shop, and when I see something new come out, I'm very curious about it. It made sense for me to be in this section of the industry. I hate the feeling of wasting money Everybody does. Like we were saying, being duped by an ad is frustrating. So being able to test and compare and give honest feedback is really fulfilling for me. And so I've been happy that I found this path of journalism.
Well, I'm happy that you have as well because your articles are extremely useful. I've earmarked a few of them. Let's start with the list of recycled and upcycled materials that you put out. What were some of those products that you were impressed with?
Yeah. Oh, there's so many fun things on that list. I think, though, from this recent update, my favorite is the denim rug. It's Revival's denim rug. I love the idea of taking textile waste, of which, of course, there is a lot of. In this case, it's denim, and making it into something else that can last a really long time. The rug is really pretty. I don't think anyone would come into the room and say, was this jeans? Like it just is pretty, it's durable, and it can be machine washed, which is, I feel like, rare with a rug. So that's probably my favorite thing that I tested this round.
I love that because how many people just end up throwing out a rug because it's stained and gross and they don't want to take it to the dry cleaner? Because I remember I used to do that every summer. At the end of each summer, I would take my outdoor rug to the dry cleaner because it's got mold and all kinds of gross stuff on it, it's kind of green spots. And it would cost me easily $100 or more and 3 weeks to get it back.
Yeah, it's very expensive. I also test carpet cleaners though, so I'm I'm lucky I have some overlap there, so I can clean the rug too if I don't want to throw it in the washing machine.
Cool, good. Okay. And with the on the clothing front, there was another article that you wrote related to clothing made from recycled materials. And what were some of the themes that stood out to you with some of these materials that are being recycled into a clothing?
Yeah. Most of the clothing items that are on that list come from recycled plastic bottles that then go through a process. They're turned into pellets, and then that becomes a fabric. But there are other things too, like using fabrics that already exist, recycled fabric. So it could be recycled nylon or cotton, or dead stock yarn, like the brand Verloop does. They have a bag that is like stuffed with old yarn that came from their other products. So they try not to waste anything in that regard. I think the theme is that most of it comes from recycled plastic bottles. And I think when it comes to fashion, everybody needs clothes. Whether you're somebody who thinks you love fashion or not, you still have to buy clothes. So I think it makes sense that that industry would be trying to make a lot of changes in that regard using recycled plastic and other recycled materials. The problem, though, I think a lot of it, not all of it, but a lot of it is still at a price point that's too high for a lot of people. And I guess I hope that we can see a shift of sustainable clothing becoming more affordable because there is a reason why fast fashion is, enticing to people because it's affordable. And again, it's the economy. Like, we can't really afford to splurge on a lot of things.
hmm The and so when these pellets are these plastic pellets are then being created into other fabrics. These is like you mentioned, nylon, rayon, other types of plastic threads are what make a lot of clothing soft, durable, stain resistant, or even just shrink resistant. Frankly, I can't tell you how many linen pants I've bought for my fiance that he's worn once. We washed them and line dried them, cold water, line dried them, and they shrank. And so he couldn't wear them anymore. So it's like we're trying to be trying to use not natural fibers, but then you end up being wasteful anyway because the the the, the quality of the fabric doesn't maintain what you expect it to be. So I do think that there's some merit to having some type of plastic materials in our clothing.
Yeah, I agree. I know that's the worst. I can't tell you how many times that's happened to me too. You pull something out of the wash and suddenly they're high waters, or a crop top that wasn't a crop top and now it's a belly shirt. Um, I will say, there are some brands, some of them are these recycled clothing brands that also offer like take back programs. So if that does happen, or if eventually it starts to rip or something like that, you can return it to them. They will then recycle it again. And then usually you get some sort of coupon for the store. So I like that that's also offered.
On the topic of reusing bottles, you wrote a piece about there being a concern about lead being in reusable water bottles, and some that are very, very popular, and you see them everywhere. So, what did you discover first? And then I have a follow-up question to that.
So, yes, a lot of these popular water bottle brands are using a lead soldering to seal the bottom of their insulated cups. Um, when they do that, it is then covered by stainless steel. So it shouldn't ever be in the actual part that holds your drink. And it would take some abuse to the bottle for that steel piece to pop off and expose the lead. However, it's not impossible. It can happen. And I've seen, when this news came out, people were posting photos of that it's like a little circle of stainless steel that had popped off. The brands that use lead say they are following the industry standard. However, there are enough brands now that do not use lead to make these insulated water bottles that I feel like that argument is kind of irrelevant. My favorite water bottle for many years has been the Owala Free Sip, and they've never used lead. And they're about the same price as some of these popular ones that do use lead. Hydro Flask, Clean Canteen, these are brands that do not use lead. So it's possible.
Yeah, I was very concerned after I read your article because I've been using this Yeti water bottle since 2018. You can see it's dinged and scratched and all kinds of good stuff. Can't tell you how many times I've dropped it. Um, and so I started thinking, well, how concerned should I be? Should I start? Because I know Yeti is one of the companies that, while they didn't respond to your inquiries directly, if you go to their website, um, it did say that they use lead, this lead pellet or something that you were calling it. Is that true?
Yes, so they do. That was a brand that actually they didn't get back to us right away, but they did later. There were some other brands that didn't. Yeah. Um, as far as being concerned, I think you don't need to be overly concerned because, like I said, it will take some abuse of that bottle for the lead to be exposed. And again, it should be on the bottom. It shouldn't be in the part that your water is in. However, there's still a little bit, there's a chance, and it feels unnecessary for that to even be part of the process. I think if you have a bottle from one of these brands, you don't have to throw it away if it's not damaged, but be careful, keep an eye on it.
I like that advice when you're looking for your next water bottle, or if you're a corporation that's going to um, put your personal brand on a promotional water bottle and give them away at conferences. You want to make sure that you're being responsible in terms of the product that you're offering to your customers. And so I think that's good advice.
And yeah, everybody needs to be aware of it. And like I said, there's enough brands that are not using it that there's no shortage of, whatever you want. Like I have the Owala free sip, which I can take with me. I have this for when I'm just sitting at home, which looks just like the Stanley, but it's an Owala. Um, there's no shortage of options. So
When you're looking at these sustainable products, though, do you are there any telltale signs that a product might not be as sustainable as it claims, or something that sort of tips you off that you want us to be aware of?
sure. Greenwashing is definitely an issue. I think there are a lot of companies that would rather tell you they're doing good than actually do good. But yes, you can look out for a few things. So, terms like natural are always going to raise some red flags because that doesn't really mean anything. Natural doesn't mean good, unnatural doesn't mean bad. If something is labeled as sustainable but doesn't have any other evidence or numbers to share, like clothing. Let's say a piece of clothing says this is made out of recycled materials, but you can't find how much, what materials, anything like that. That's another red flag. If brands are certified by something, by some organization, are they legit organizations? Are they legit certifications? Just looking them up and seeing who they're affiliated with will help you make really good choices. I think it's really about coming in skeptical and doing a lot of research instead of what we wish we could do, which is if it says it's sustainable, buy it and believe them. Unfortunately, you have to be skeptical and do the work. If you're not sure, if you can't find information, you can always email a brand's customer service and ask. And sometimes it's they just didn't put it on the website and there really is evidence. And sometimes they simply can't share it with you. So that will help.
Well, then what would be some of your advice to the industry to help customers make buying sustainable products easier? How can we make it better?
Sustainability is not like a trend that is going to go away. You need to just be upfront about what you're doing and what you're using. I was reading something recently. I think it's Patagonia. They have some good sustainability efforts, but they do not claim that they are never wasting anything or that they're nothing that is manufactured is going to have zero effect on anything. So you don't need to claim to be saving the world and to be perfect and that everything you're doing is amazing. You just need to be making better choices and being honest about what those choices are. Yeah, that's what the industry needs to do.
Yeah, because if you're not being transparent, um, well, then what else aren't you being transparent about, right? It casts an entire cloud over the product and brand broadly, I would think. But if you are being pragmatic and, um, like you said with Patagonia, just being realistic about what you are able to do and not able to do, then at least you're you're being approachable with your customers. You're being real. That's what I'm trying to say. You're being real with people. You're not trying to hide, and that creates greater brand honesty and loyalty, I would think.
Yes, you're being real and it's also relatable for an average person because again, like there's only so much we can do. We also can't be perfect. So to hear a brand say, I'm not perfect either, but look at all these things I'm doing to help. Yeah, it makes you want to shop at that brand and believe them and try what they have.
Yeah, like it's, in yoga, they say, it's a you practice it's a journey, not a destination. Kind of feel like it's the same thing with some of the sustainability initiatives that we have or that we're looking to have in our consumer products. It's a journey. We're going to get every year, every product gets a little bit better, hopefully.
And our knowledge of it, our knowledge of what's available and what we can do gets better every year, I think.
And the information out there on the internet, especially with the work that you're doing, just gets more and more plentiful. So it's harder for brands to hide as well. you know, and the consumers are getting savvier as well. Like we know how, like you're teaching us how to spot certain red flags that maybe we wouldn't have been able to spot 5 years ago.
Yeah, totally. And I, like I said earlier, I've fallen for the ads. I've fallen for the greenwashing as well. I've bought makeup that says it's natural, and then you realize like, wait, I don't actually know what I'm talking about. So it takes like realizing that you don't know to then know.
Random question. Are there any other product categories that you think are wasteful that you would like to see improved?
Oh, let's see. Well, I think the beauty industry maybe, but I also think I'm seeing steps already, but it could be better. Um, I think, and I don't know if this goes back to maybe the influx of influencer videos and beauty YouTubers say, where you kind of feel like if you like that industry, you feel like you have to buy a ton and to try it and see if it works. And then even if you return it, if you return it to Sephora, they're likely throwing it away. So it is very wasteful. I think that there are better things that can be done. And on a consumer level, you can ask for samples first, if at all possible. But I think more brands should offer refills, so that, of course, there's still going to be some waste. That's still a container you have to throw away, but it's way less waste. You don't have to buy a new pump every time, for example. I think that something can be done there. It's such a huge industry, whether it's makeup or skincare or anything like that. So I hope that we see more there.
Uh, Speaking of wasteful packaging, we've seen that the Consumer Products Goods Executives report said that they had a challenge around, meeting initiatives related to consumer packaging or environmentally or ethically sustainable products that consumers are looking for. And they said, well, there's just not sufficient demand for us to really take this stuff seriously. And I'm curious from your perspective, what are you starting to see in this sort of push pull between a consumer desire for more sustainable products, but then kind of a lack of broader industry attention to that demand?
Yeah. I think the biggest issue there is that these big brands know that to make these changes is it's going to be a change to what they're doing, and it might cost them a little bit of money, and they don't want to do that. I also think when brands make things that are sustainable, often they jack up the price, and nobody wants that. Especially like this day and age, a lot of people are barely making it paycheck to paycheck. So if you're a company saying, well, here's the sustainable version you asked for, but now it's triple the price, I mean, maybe the consumer's not going to want to do that. And so I think these brands, in an effort to not do the work, are saying that people don't want it or are saying that they can't do it. But they can, and we shouldn't have to pay more for an ethically sustainable version. Um, I remember once being in the tampon aisle and seeing the non-toxic tampons costing significantly more a box. And I was just sitting there like, wait, why do I have to choose between, I guess, these ones that are toxic and then this brand that has so graciously decided it shouldn't be toxic, but you have to spend all this money. I think that these major corporations just need to do the work, and if they make good products, people will buy them. And if they make good products that people can afford, people will buy them.
Exactly. And if they don't, another upstart company is going to come along and figure out from the ground up how to do something more sustainable and also cost effectively and be able to compete with them on price with a better product. Industry attention to that demand.
So, Yes, exactly. And with the internet the way that it is, companies don't need to spend like millions of dollars on marketing anymore either. And so there's so many opportunities for them to do this. We as consumers can cut out waste as much as possible and buy only things that are made of recycled materials. And like at the end of the day, if the corporations that are like polluting the earth don't do anything, what we've done is not going to really matter in the long run if the bigger brands are not making changes. There's something when we talk about sustainability, there's always the conversation of, well, why do I have to use a paper straw, right? When these celebrities are like flying their private jets, what would be the equivalent of like a 45-minute drive? I don't know if you've ever seen these maps of like private jets leaving something like the Super Bowl.
Oh
It's
yeah.
crazy. It's an insane amount. And you're like, why can these people not carpool together? I don't understand. But when you see that, you're like, well, why do I have to do this? Or it feels like, is what I'm doing enough? And while we do need other people and bigger corporations to make changes, like we can still do a lot with a little. So I don't want people to be discouraged by that, but maybe if everybody gets mad enough, things will change.
Yeah, and there's layers of social pressure, and I think you're starting to see the private airline industry is starting to feel that pressure, and I think that's why Jetstream wanted to prove that they could run a transcontinental flight on 100% sustainable aviation fuels. I think they did that back in November, and then Virgin Atlantic also did something similar around the same week. And so there's certainly that pressure is happening, and then there's like the social pressure, like there's those maps of like Taylor Swift's tour and all of her flights back and forth. And you could tell whenever there was a game in Kansas City, because she's going to Kansas City and then she leaves, going back to Kansas City. And I was like, poor Taylor, she's getting picked on. She's just trying to provide some entertainment here. Like this is part of the job, right? Um, but so I think there's like these layers of what can I do as an individual at different levels of society. And like you said, if we're all, this is my philosophy. If we're all doing what we can in our little corner of the world, if, if collectively we will make a difference.
Yes. And collectively, yeah, the brands and the corporations will see and will say, okay, like we're going to get left behind if we don't do something. So it's important that we all use our voice in a way that we can. And yeah, it's the answer is not necessarily that Taylor Swift, or there was also like Kylie Jenner, something happened with her use flying like I think 30 minutes or something. Of course, those types of people can't just like go to JFK and like hop on first class. It would be like a mob scene in the airport. So I think most of us understand that those things exist for a reason. However, like better planning, they don't need to take a private jet to a different part of Los Angeles. Like there are things that could be done.
Yeah, exactly. Um, we've talked a lot about products for women, but I'm curious about, have you done any research on products that more men might use that are getting more sustainable? Do you have some examples there that we could discuss?
Yeah, obviously, I have done more research on women's products, but there definitely are men's products available, especially in clothing. That's a brand that or I'm sorry, that's a category that I'm seeing both women and men's clothing becoming more sustainable. There are some brands we recommend for like board shorts and shoes and stuff like that. There are also things like Dollar Shave Club and things like that that obviously anybody can use but are marketed more towards men. That's also, it's giving you a solution to the waste of disposable razors.
I like what you said about razors. Our grandparents and older than them had one razor that you replace the blade on, right? And I find it interesting that we're kind of going back to that.
Yeah, I did get to test. We had a guide that we no longer update. However, it was some like alternative hair removal methods. But I did get to test some of those like safety razors, and I was shocked how nice they were because my whole life I was told 5 blades, 6 blades, like as many blades as you could fit in there is what you need. So I thought I'm going to shave my legs with this one razor and it is going to do nothing. But it was like significantly better. I didn't get razor burn and stuff like that. So yeah, that industry is maybe making also like significant changes. And with Dollar Shave Club and things like that, you get one really good like stainless steel handle, and then you just have to buy blades. It's less packaging when they're sending it to you in bulk than if you have to go to the store. So that's nice. I also think that women, because we tend to be people that are buying things, we can be responsible for the change. So if we are demanding it, that can change an industry. I think we've seen that. So yeah, maybe it's not the worst thing that we are marketed to this way because we can be the ones that can make a change.
Earthlings. Like I said, this interview was cut down a lot, but I hope you enjoyed what you heard. If you want to hear more, head on over to Patreon and listen to the rest of it. There's a link in the show notes for that, as well as links to Medea's profile page and all of the articles that we talked about on the show. And if you like her stuff, hit her up on social media and give her some kudos. Feeding the beast, as we call it in the journalism business, can sometimes be a thankless task. The beast doesn't really care how great your stories are. It just wants more of them every day, constantly. And it's hard to know if what you're writing about and researching is actually helping people. So if you like Medea's stuff, please let her know. Speaking of helping people, our faith in humanity is restored this week by a couple in Lincolnshire, England, who have fostered 150 children and teenagers for over 46 years. Margaret and Robert Isdale started their foster care journey back in 1978. Now they're in their 80s and they had 2 children of their own, and they are still fostering young Earthlings. Right now, they have an 8-month-old baby that they're taking care of. They received a Lifetime Achievement Award for their service to the community. And explaining their decision to foster, Robert said, "You're there to give them an interim period of safety, to allow them to experience being part of a family." Regarding how hard people must think it is to complete a foster care experience with a child and give them back, Margaret said, "Well, that's a part of what we do. And sometimes when you hand a child over to adoptive parents or birth parents and they keep in touch and they say how appreciative they are, that in itself is a reward." We commend Margaret and Robert for being there for these Earthlings and their families when they needed it most, and reminding us that stepping in to help others where and when you can is often the best gift we can give each other on this beautiful blue-green space flower that we call home.